have we got here with Dr. Dave?
So, you've brought us all the way up here, Dr. Dave. Where exactly are we?
Well, Stacey, I brought you to the far western corner of the Murray Darling Basin. Stretched out before us here is the massive floodplain of the mighty Darling, the longest river in Australia. So this outback river is just as important as the Murray River, but rather than me tell you all about it, let's go and meet the locals who live and work on the Darling, and they can give us the full story.
The Darling's different from the Murray. It doesn't fill from snowfall and regular snow events and melting events like the Murray does. It fills from rainfall in the catchment, which is sort of largely in the sort of alluvial floodplains in Queensland. There's a lot of shallow and narrow rivers up there that feed into the Darling. So it only feeds from rainfall. There's no big ice caps that'll melt in the western plains of New South Wales and fill the Darling up. So it's a long, thin river that carries that rainwater all the way down to where it meets the Murray in the end. It's longer and narrower than the Murray. All up, if you include the extended part after it reaches the Murray and its northern tributaries, the Darling's the longest river system in Australia. The Darling's got a milky white colour, and that's due to the silt that it collects as it makes its way along the stream. It covers a lot of floodplain territory, which covers sandy alluvial plains. And that picks up silt and low sediment, particularly in times of rainfall. The floodplains of the Darling River can range anywhere from 10 to 50 kilometres wide. The Darling's an unregulated system, so it can't be managed in the same way that other regulated systems are. The population of the Darling River is relatively very low comparative to the rest of the country and comparative to other river systems. In the western catchment of New South Wales, we estimate a population of around about 18,000 people. That's what we call our community. It comprises a significant Aboriginal population. The Aboriginal people have been living along the Darling River for thousands of years. It's been a source of food, it's been a source of recreation, it's provided shelter and nourishment for them for many years. In the town of Brewarrina, there's quite a significant site, the Brewarrina fish traps, which were a meeting place for tribes for right across the state who would come and get together, nourish, trade, share, form celebrations, have ceremonies. Those people who came from areas that were further west than the Darling all call the Darling home now. But also in the last 120, 130 years, it's got a lot of cultural significance for European people as well, who've found the Darling as a good point to settle and raise their families and have sort of made their own story part of the Darlings. A major source of industry along the Darling River is grazing. There's also a certain amount of irrigation in some key spots along the Darling River. There's some mining along the Darling River, believe it or not. Some of the floodplains have given birth to rich opal fields in towns like Walgett and Lightning Ridge. There's also tourism as a key industry along the Darling River, with many people wanting to come and fish and enjoy the social attributes of the river, as well as the very picturesque views. It's very difficult to say how often the Darling floods. In the last 3 years we've had a flood every year. The 10 years before that we had virtually no rainfall. So it's a variable system. But on average you can expect the river to dry up completely every 2 to 3 years. The weir pools hold water back for the major towns and they're used to sort of keep the towns going through. Along with the floodplains are a host of wetlands. Since European settlement, sometimes they fill less regularly because we've built roads and levee banks and structures that impede the filling action that takes when the river raises. But they're very significant breeding places, they're very significant biodiversity warehouses. When the river can fill, those wetlands can become real storehouses and engine rooms of biodiversity that go back into the river system and go back into the broader ecosystem. The Western Catchment Management Authority engages the broader community in managing all areas of natural resource management in the catchment, and that includes the river and the riparian zones. We try to educate and inform people about the significance and the threats and the values of the river system. Young people more than anyone have a close connection to the river. I know that as a young man myself growing up here on the river, as a young lad, I spent more time in it than on the side of it, and that's a relationship that young people have with the river primarily. You don't get to realise all the science or the technical or the value stuff behind things until you get older and put things into a social perspective. But as a kid, you just know that it's something you value because you like it. You like to go down there and have fun. You like to gather with your friends there. You like it when you can catch a fish or a yabby there. It has a strong meaning, and in that way, the Darling's always forged a very strong place in the hearts of all the people who've had any relationship with it.